In this tutorial, which is the final part of our coin pickup set, we are going to give our player a UI so that they can actually see the score. We had seen the score being printed out, but that's not something we can use in our final game. Instead, we need to actually give the player some UI so they can see what their score currently is. And that's what we're going to do. To start, we need to actually create the UI itself. Unreal has a special type of asset for that. When we right click, and we can see there is a, there you go. There is a thing that says user interface. That's a folder. We can open that, and what we want to create is a widget blueprint. And it's going to be a user widget. Widget blueprints are also just blueprints. So I tend to just give it the prefix BP still. I'm going to call this BP player UI. Because our player UI can hold all of the player UI. It can be health. It could be like cooldowns. But I'm going to just display score in this. But you know, it's good to know that this player UI is just going to be with our player. When we open it up, we're given a totally different type of area to work in. This is not a 3D viewport. Instead, this is a 2D viewport. If we look on the side, it's called a designer. So this is where we can add all our components that we want our UI to have. Unreal's UI editor is very powerful. They have so many components that you can use here. You can add checkboxes, you can add buttons, you can add images. There's even progress bars here. I'm interested in this text box because our score is just going to be displayed as text. So I'm going to drag that out here. And you can see it says text block up here. I do want my score to display in the top right, so I'm just going to leave that there. You could change the justification if you wanted to display in different places, but I am just going to display this here. Now we can see that currently this text block says text block. If I look over in the details panel under content and text, there is, you know, it says what I can type there. If I was to type hello and press enter, that's what it shows. And this, we can think about this as like what we want the text to show, like when the game starts. Ideally, we'll be changing it in code. But for now, I know for our score, I could do score is 0 because that's what it's going to start at. Now let's just attach this to our player and let's see that working. So we've made this UI. I can save it. If I was to go about my level blueprint and play, currently we don't see it. That's because we need to actually tell Unreal that this blueprint or this widget belongs to our player and to actually render it onto the viewport. To do that, we're going to do that in event begin play, which I do not have here, so I'm just going to add it. Or I do have it here. So we're just going to add it to the end of this event begin play. Now these are going to use some fairly special nodes in Unreal. Again, the reason that Unreal even has this is because of its history as a multiplayer engine. So you might want to add different UIs to different people. And that's kind of where this comes from. But for our purposes, I would say, you know, just try and memorize these nodes. Or come back to this video every time that you want to add a UI and you kind of forgot. Even if you Google it, you will probably find a picture of this somewhere. So first we need to create the blueprint. So I'm going to type create widget. There is an option for that. Let's add that. Next we need to set the class of this widget. So mine was called BP player UI. Select that. In this owning player, what we need to do is type get player controller and set the owning player to that. Player index 0 is default, and that represents our player. Again, this really comes to be in a multiplayer game, whether it be an online multiplayer game or a local one. We will have multiple player controllers. So 0 is just going to be the only one there because that is the only player controller we have. So that's going to be the owning player. This means we own this widget now. Then I'm just going to promote this widget and save it as a variable so we can use it later. We'll see why that comes in handy. And I'm going to call this player or UI. I'm just going to call it UI. And finally, we have created the widget, so Unreal knows this widget exists. We've attached it to our player. We just need to show it on the screen. We need to render it to screen, and to do that, we can use a function called add to viewport. So again, when you Google it, you'll probably find these nodes. If you do forget it, it's always in this video. It's something you might just have to remember for a while till you get used to the fact that this is how we make UI show up in Unreal. Now when I run our game, you can see that my score shows up in the corner there. It says score 0. So our viewport, our UI is now attached to our player, and now we can like use our UI to do things. Now, real quick as well, if we play it again, if we play it, we can see that my score is currently on the top left. And just again, when we go back in here, I showed you that we can move things around using this justification. But what if I don't want to do that? What if I want my score to be Scott in the middle, or just some in just anywhere else that's not these areas? I just want to show you that real quick. I do want my score in the top left because I think that's fine. But I just want to show you just in case, you guys might not want. So the easiest way to do that first is let's just delete our text. And the first thing we always want to add is a panel. A canvas panel, a grid panel, or uniform grid panel all work, but a canvas panel lets us do freeform editing. These other panels will actually put things in a grid format. So let's just use a canvas panel. You'll see that it's symbolized by these little line dots around here. Now when I add my text into the screen, instead of a green border taking up the whole screen, it's attached to the canvas panel and it's just in there. So let me just size it to my text. And here you can see we can move this text anywhere on the screen we want. So this is how, if for example, you wanted game over in the middle of the screen, we'll just move this here. We can take our text size, increase the font size up, and we can take our text, go to font, we can increase the font size, and we could have it say something like game over instead of being score. But I'm going to use this as score, so we'll go back to score 0. And I'm going to reduce the size to something more reasonable. And for now, I'm just going to move it back up here. So now we have this working. We know how to kind of use this UI tool to add some score. I would again recommend you guys go look through everything. Just play around with this UI designer. It's very nice. How can we use this? So we already have this function here in our player called increment score, and currently that's just incrementing the score as the name says. Now we need a function in our player, in our UI, that's going to take this score and also increment it. It's just going to set it to whatever we want. To do that, we have next to designer, it says graph here, and this, just like in our actors, this opens up its own graph. And you can see there's some types of events here. There's event construct, pre-construct. So just like begin play, when we make this UI, like when this UI gets spawned in, these two functions get run. We don't really need that for our game. I'm just going to delete them. And finally, there's event tick, just like the event tick in our actors that runs once a frame. This event tick also runs once a frame. Again, don't need that. What we want is a custom event. So I'm just going to make function, and I'm going to call this function set score. So what I want to do is set the score. I know that this function needs an event, where here, just in our blueprints, the details panel is on the right side. In the widget blueprints, for some reason, it's on the left side. And I know that in details, I just want an input. What is that input going to be? For me, it's going to be the score, which is an integer. Now we want to use this score to set that text, this text that we have here. To do that, we can come and click on the text, and right next to the text blocks, there's a word that says is variable. Sorry, there's a checkbox that says is variable. When we check this, we turn this text box into a variable that we can use in our event graph. Now that we're making a variable, let's just name it something sensible. I like to name all my UI elements prefixed with what they are. So a text block would usually be txt, again, to just show me that it's text in there. And I'm going to call it text score. Now when I go into the graph, you can see under variables, this text score has showed up. This wasn't there before I checked that box, but now that we have this text score variable. So let's pull that out, let's get it. And what do we want to do? If we go back to our designer, we can see the text box has a variable called text, and that's where we're setting the text. So I want to take my text score and I want to set text. And there it is. And what do I want this text to be? Well, I want it to say score, colon, and then the score. So to do that, I'm going to use the string append again. So string append, it's going to say score, colon, and then we're going to plug in the score. When we run set score, we just want to set this text to this. And you can see there's a slight difference. Again, this is a text variable and not a string variable. So text, like we talked about in that first week with the different variable types, text and string are kind of similar. Text is just an enhanced version of string. It has more features to it, and it's what the UI component uses. For us, in this specific case, doesn't really matter because it's going to show our score for us just fine. Save everything. And now in our BP first person character, when we increment the score, let's just take out our UI variable and also set score. And just pass this increment along to it. So let's run it and see if this works. I'll wait for my score to pop up. There it popped up. Wait for that display to go away, and there you go. Score 1, score 2, score 3, score 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So now our score not only gets incremented, but our player also knows what the score is. And this, just like that, we can use this, UI, and we can use our collisions to create these collectibles. We can also give feedback to the player because our coin is spinning. It plays a sound when we collect it. And now we've more importantly added some feedback to the player. So if you guys are making collectathon games, you want your players to know how much they've collected so far. Use a UI for it. Maybe you're going to be collecting keys. They need to collect 3 keys. You can have it written 0 out of 3. When they collect it, they can get 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3, 3 out of 3, etc. There's many uses for this UI. It is, again, a very powerful tool that Unreal has. It has a lot of features going on for it. This is just scratching the smallest surface into it. We'll look a little more at UI when we do our project 2. But this is a good way to get our feet wet with it, especially by doing collectibles, because we are incrementing score, and score is something we want to show the player. So that's been our little series on creating collectibles. Thank you guys for watching.